Hello and welcome to Four Lads midweek show with Kenny and I as we look forward to tomorrow's huge game against Bilbao at Ibrox Stadium, but also just have a bit of a chat in general about player form, about some Rangers standards on the pitch and things that we feel that are going on that is maybe being missed. Kenny, Wednesday morning, mate, how are you? Hope you're well.
I'm fine, thank you. Watched the Arsenal game last night. Got a bit jealous watching a great good outfit, mate. But apart from that, I'm good.
Yeah, it was incredible, actually, wasn't it? I sat there, do you know what? I sat there and thought to myself that Real Madrid strong favourites. If that can be done to them, then anything can happen. I suppose that's why we love football, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal were sensational last night. To be fair, didn't give Real Madrid a millisecond on the ball, and they really struggled with it. And yeah, as I say, they're just looking at a team like that, and you think, well, all right, different levels, mate. We know that, but at the same time, what an outfit! They were sensational last night. They really were good. And they were lucky Madrid to get out with three, weren't they?
I think they were. But it sets up for a big second leg because anything can happen when it comes to Real Madrid. However, back closer to home, there's been a lot of discussion lately. Something Kenny and I wanted to discuss about player form. And one of the big things that is going on at this moment in time is Jack Butland's form, Cyril Desser's form, and we're going to have a wee look at that. There is a clip on social media doing the rounds, Kenny, which I'm going to bring up right now, and it's of Jack Butland's form this season. So we're going to just go and have a wee look at that. I'm going to bring it up and bring you and show you those clips of Jack Butland's performance this season, just in case people haven't seen it. It comes from X footage, courtesy of X users, and it's been compiled from this season. So let's have a look at it. It's pretty startling when you see it all like that, Kenny. There's well over a dozen or so mistakes in their different games. I've said a lot about Jack Butland this season, and it's not so much Jack Butland as let's put Jack Butland to side a minute. When you look at guys like Cyril Dessers, who in recent weeks has taken one chance in 17, here's the point I'm getting to, and this is where it becomes difficult. But if we're true to ourselves, these guys are nowhere near levels that our football club require. Absolutely nowhere near it. And I don't say that because we're not liking, Butland or Dessers or anything. But if we're honestly true to ourselves, do you want to know why we're second and why we're so far behind and everything else? It's because we laud these guys and treat them like they're absolute kings. When see in reality, they're miles off what a Rangers player requires.
Absolutely true. That's terrible watching. You stuck that up on our chat last night, didn't you, or yesterday? And everybody was, wow, when you see it like that, as you say, It's terrible. Dessers we know about. We've talked about it for 2 seasons, and it's not just those two, Stevie. Let's be blunt. You could point to literally every position in the park and say, are they at the level that Rangers require to be successful? And just the majority of positions, let's say it that way, you would have to say no. We have an issue up front. We've got an issue at the back. We don't create enough in midfield, and the individual players. It comes down, for me personally, Stevie, to our lack of recruitment strategy, or the way to build a team, to make a team successful. And I'm not blaming any individuals here, so don't, before I kind of go on a rant, it's the issue I would say is that if you look over the last few years, Stevie, and show me a player that we've signed with medals, with championships, with titles, successful winners, with the right mentality, the right profile for a club like ours, where we've won 3 trophies in 10 years. Yeah, we understand that, but our club has been built on winning trophies, success. And if you actually look at the players we're signing, you've got to be honest about it and say, well, you're not signing many winners there. You're not signing a lot of players with the correct mentality. Now, that might be harsh on certain individuals, but in the main, it's probably true, isn't it?
Yeah, and something else we can discuss that they're missing, that I feel is also a kind of local presence, which if you look back into every squad, even if we look back into recent winning sides, so if you look at that season under Walter Smith, those 3 years before Walter retired, the team was sprinkled with local talent: Boyd, Miller, Whittaker, Thompson, Kirk Broadfoot, guys that weren't highly fashionable. Davy Weir, of course, guys that weren't highly fashionable, but were understood what it was like to play for Rangers, bought locally from the league, etc. Kirk Broadfoot's a prime example. Recently, I was doing a night with Chris Boyd, and he said, when he talked about Broadfoot, that first in the door, last out the door, trained, gave it everything, understood completely what it meant, completely immersed in the club. We don't have anybody like that, and I think that shines through, and we have a real lack of that in the team. And when you talk about winners and signing guys that understand what it's like to win, I think sometimes it's important, Kerry, to sign people that understand what the values are of Rangers Football Club and what is required week in, week out. I don't think we have that, and I'm going to come to that in a bit, but I think that's hugely missing as well, just an understanding that a draw here really is, completely unacceptable, and we somehow have got ourselves in a position where our squad is littered with guys who quite evidently pick and choose when they want to play.
Absolutely, and we've seen that. We mentioned on the pod on Monday night that how many more shameful records do this team want to break this year? They've lost to a lower league team at Ibrox. They've lost 5 games in the bounce at Ibrox. Both of these incidences in the first time in our history, and I question their professionalism. I actually, you can't have any pride in your work. If you know what it means to play for Rangers, you would never, ever, ever lose 5 games in the bounce at Ibrox. Not when, with all respect to the clubs I'm going to mention, with Hibs, Motherwell, St Mirren and Queen's Park. We're better than all of those teams, Stevie. We have better players. We have better... everything about our club is bigger and better and designed to be successful. So at some point we have to stop blaming managers to a certain degree and actually look at the recruitment, look at the policies at the club, look at where we're going wrong, and be honest with ourselves and say, you've hinted there and you've mentioned there, I beg your pardon, that but we don't have enough Scottish players, or local players. And part of the issue now is that if you want to go and buy a Scottish international, a lot of them are all playing in England or whatever, and they're costing ridiculous amounts of money that we can't afford. So we have to look at a different way of doing it. And let's be brutally blunt about it. Even our youth system, if you want to look at that, isn't producing the mentality or the standard required. So we can't even get it instilled to them at a young age at this minute in time. The club's broken in this sense. And for me, I would like to see, when these new owners do eventually come in, a change of strategy with this. And I don't know how you feel about this, but we do need a core of Scottish players in our squad. And as I say, I don't necessarily think they're going to be easy to find, because top tier players that are Scottish are hard to come by. But we have to do something to do it, to make sure that we can do it. We have to rectify this situation. And any successful side that I've seen, Stevie, Rangers side, at least half of them will be Scots in their squad. And I don't think that's the case here at all, is it?
Well, I think something I would highlight from what you said there about we can't go and sign Scottish internationals and things like that. I understand that, right? But Broadfoot, Boyd, Miller, Whittaker, Thompson, etc., they weren't Scottish internationals when we picked them up. What we need to do is get better at scouting what's in our league. And I'll point to one key example, and we'll probably missed out on them. And I'll point to another as well. Lennon Miller would have been signed a year ago in old Rangers squads and old Rangers managers that have been successful at the football club. That should have happened. It should have happened before Diamande. It should have happened before others in midfield, that we just get in a position where we take the local and best one. That boy now is probably out with our grasp and will go to Italy or elsewhere. He should have been our midfielder for the next 10 years, prospectively. Or, you don't hold on to players that long anymore. But my point is, you could have set up the team around him and gave him 4 or 5 years and then sold him on to Italy at 23, 24. We've now missed the boat with him. And he is perfect for what we need in our midfield. And there's left back situation. You look at it and you've got Redvan and Jeffy completely underperforming every week in, week out. And we put Jeffy on some sort of pedestal, and he's got 1 assist, I think, this year. And he's been absolutely scandalously bad, costing us goals left, right, and centre. And it goes back to a wee bit more about what I talk about is our standards, and how we laud players that consistently are inconsistent and put in performances where is miles off. And I think it's been a bit of a shock to Barry Ferguson. But we'll come to that when we come to that in a wee minute. Just when we're talking about local people, this is probably another reason why I think Shankland should get looked at. And it doesn't really matter what people think about his ability and whether or not he can be first team for Rangers. I think when you look at third, fourth striking options, he's free, he's Scottish, he's a leader, he understands what it's about. He should be in that squad somewhere. And it's guys like him, Kenny, I feel that would be missing. And incidentally, you can say what you want about Lawrence Shankland and things like that. He's playing a different role at Hearts this year, etc. Lawrence Shankland isn't taking 1 chance out of 17. And these are things that we need to make sure that isn't happening now. I'm not saying that Lawrence Shankland is the star summer signing, or indeed he should be. I'm saying that people like that core mentality, that core understanding, supporters of the club, able to do it week in, week out at our level in our league, which is very tough. These are guys we should be looking at, and it's an obvious one, of course it is, but we aren't doing it, and I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have in our squad is we lack that understanding, Kenny. So in answer to your point and kind of highlighting that point about what we don't have in terms of recruitment, guys like that is fundamental. And I just watch this team, and we're going to come a wee bit onto player form a wee bit more, but I watch this team and it certainly lacks so much, that's for sure.
Yeah. And as you say, there's multiple examples of us buying young or bringing boys in young. Kenny Miller's another prime example of getting a young boy when he was at Hibs, and he was firing him in for Hibs, and he came to us and advocate played him in a slightly different role and allowed him to build, and he became a right good player for us. And there's loads of them. The one we've missed out on is Lewis Ferguson, who, for whatever reason, we always said as a support, we turned our noses up at, was not good enough because he's only playing for Aberdeen. Well, he is, and he was. But listen, for me, it's one of these things, Stevie, that we have to look at in terms of recruitment. Niels Coppin has turned around and said, you would do want to bring more Scottish players in, but it was literally, I think, if I'm misquoting him, forgive me, but it was literally, we'd like to bring one in a year, but we actually need a core of this. Yeah, and I'm in total agreement with you in terms of what we really need is the spine of the team behind the scenes in a dressing room. You need that. And you look at all successful Rangers sides, and with guys like Ian Durrant or Ali McCoist or a Richard Gough or all these guys that are Ian Ferguson's another prime example of guys that just knew, and John Brown's another one, who if you weren't giving your all, you were getting in at half time and you would have you'd be pinned to a wall saying get your finger out. And I think that is part of the issue that we have, Stevie, is that overall and in the main, the players that we are signing, they're using us as a stepping stone. And that's all very good and well if you've got a few of these guys and they can learn about the football club. But for me, the core element of and the absolute ethos of Rangers is to win trophies. And I just get that feeling that a lot of these guys just don't understand that. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. And I don't really know how you go about fixing it short term, Stevie, because it's going to be difficult to do in a really short space of time, but it needs done. That's what I would say to you.
It certainly does. And I think, and I've said this for a long time as well, we should be shining more of a light on the recruitment department who put us in this position again. Niels Coppin. I'm afraid that one signing doesn't really negate the fact that you've completely steered this team in the wrong way. It's no surprise that we're not equipped for Scotland. But let's look at the current player form a wee bit more. We talked about Butland, we talked about Jeff Dessers, even guys like Jeff Kenny, Mohamed Diamande, Nico Raskin, and you look at your likes of your Bairamis, your Hajis, etc. These guys are all flattering to deceive, picking and choosing when they want to play football. The bigger games come along, they're all on it. Igaman's got 1 goal in 14 who suffered from, and we think he's the next best thing. There needs to be a wee bit of realism about what we're dealing with. I think Hibs, for me, highlighted the fact that these guys are picking and choosing. And I say Raskin in the middle of this, and here's why I say it, because I think Nico Raskin is tremendous. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that his consistency levels are miles off it for Rangers. He was woeful against Hibs. I mean, really bad. Really poor at Dundee as well. And it's almost like he picks and chooses. Because Barry talked about it. He was very stark, Barry, stark in terms of his honesty. To me, you would have seen those clips on Monday. He spoke about looking at Hibs and they're running and tackling harder. That's just not on. But he's right. Excuse me. He's right in what he says, because I'm watching it and I'm seeing it. And I just think that as a fan base, and this is what I was talking about Rangers standards and what we're trying to get at, as a fan base, we're idolising guys who really shouldn't be at this football club in the first place.
It's a professionalism problem, Stevie. I keep saying it, that, and this is coming from the top down. This is my point about the issues that we have at our football club. That this should be instilled. When you view a player profile and you go and check the lad out, you'll have all that data. Then you'll check him out. Then you'll talk to him. And what is it we're buying? What is it we're signing when they're turning up? And as you say, you've got guys. Another one that is Mo Diamande. He's a prime example of a boy that will turn up in every big game, every single big game. And I really like him as a player. But every single high profile game, that boy will play out of his skin. And in the bread and butter, as Barry called it, he doesn't quite run hard enough. He doesn't quite match up to his direct opponent well enough. And I don't want to, as I say, I don't want to go about, naming individuals and kind of casting them in a bad light, because I think it's just endemic in the football club that what we have. I mean, Nico Raskin's a prime example. He's been terrible since he come back from Belgium. Now, 2 weeks ago, we were literally on this podcast raving about him and the performance he had with Belgium. And you're sitting again, well, if you can go and play against a team with the quality of Ukraine and play like that, how on earth can you turn up against Dundee and look as if you've never seen a football? I don't understand that. And for me, Neil Scoppin is going to have to be subject to a little bit of a scrutiny now, because
100%.
when you look at our signings made by Neil Scoppin, and again, you've alluded to this, but there's just no question of it, Stevie. In the main, they are not being signed to play in the Scottish Premier League. The perfect example of this was last summer when we were looking at the big lad Cordoba, who I think ended up going to Norwich. And whether he was actually interested in coming here or not, I know there's a bit of a debate, but that's the profile we were looking at. 22, 23, whatever age he was, 6'4", 6'5", built like the side of a house. We didn't get him, and right at the end of the window, we bring Robin Proper in, and you go, well, where's the correlation in terms of the profile you're looking for? Because they are like chalk and cheese in terms of what you did was bring a guy in that was almost the identical replica to Ben Davis. And we knew Ben Davis wasn't physical enough for his league. He's a good player, but he's not physical enough for our league. That kind of brings the question straight to my mind. What is it you're building your team for? Because in some ways you look as if you want to rectify it, and then in other ways you just don't. And for me, that's a kind of real issue, that we are not physical enough. And anybody that understands this league will know you need a big, strong, physical and competent side. And we don't have that, Stevie. We are far too lightweight. We're not strong enough. We're not physical enough, as I say. We're far too easy to play against. And all these things have to be rectified. And I don't know how you feel about it, Neil Scoppin, because I don't want to throw all at his door. But at the end of the day, he's responsible for the signings. And I do feel that it needs question. That's what I would say.
100% it needs question. I think that we're completely not built for this league in player or player attributes or attitude. And I suppose it brings us on nicely to to tomorrow night and what Barry does. And look, I think Barry's been handed the proverbial turd to try and polish, and he's done quite well in certain games, and he's seen up front, close and personal, just how bad it is in others. And one of the things that was startling for me about Saturday's performance is how poor our passing was and how negative it was. Nobody willing to split lines, nobody willing to make those passes, even from the front. Cyril Dessers, the amount of times he just turned it back over as well. But there's some big obvious questions that we should be looking at. Now, this football club and this team at the moment, all throughout it, it's littered with mistakes. And even we talk about John Souttar. John Souttar was at fault at Dundee for the third goal. John Souttar was at fault for the second goal on Saturday. John Souttar is one of our mainstays, not in the team tomorrow night because he's suspended. But these are guys that we're having to rely on, and they are picking and choosing when they're turning up, which brings us to tomorrow night, where we have to get the balance right. We know there's no Souttar, we know there's no Diamande, but Jack Butland really should be coming out of that team. If we're a serious football club, the amount of mistakes he continues to make, you're now at the point where you're actually shooting straight at Jack Butland and it's finding its way past him. He needs to come out of that team. That's a huge problem. Cyril Desser's 1 goal in 17, needs to come out that team. And it doesn't matter how many good chances he's creating or positions he's getting in, he needs to come out. Because seeing that 17 chances, Danilo's taking at least 1 in 3, at least. Igaman is suffering because he's playing everywhere but for this football club. He needs to come out. And I think you've got so many problems around there that we really have to try and address. Barry said there could be serious amount of changes. Well, Suter and Diamandi are going to come out anyway. We know that. That midfield isn't working. Barron, Raskin, and Diamandi in these types of games, it would work because we're going to be defending, but in others where we have to go and try and do it and do something different and get runners beyond, it doesn't. He's not got one problem, Kenny. Every single position's up for grabs. Even when you look at left backs, a toss up between who's going to be worse this week, Jeffy or Ridvan. Both of them, not exactly setting ahead of the light. Jeffy is literally throwing in goals at a rate that, that would do Jack Butland proud at this moment in time. Right back to have, I think it's been fine, but as a lightning rod, just gets blamed for absolutely everything. And you look at the leadership stuff and all that, and that does need change. We do need to get away from that, and that's another wider discussion. Centre backs throwing in goals, midfield is so bland that they don't do anything else. Up front, we know the issues. What does Barry do ahead of Bilbao, and what does he do for the rest of the season? Because if you drop Jack Butland, you're dropping him now for the rest of the season. If you drop Cyril Dessers, you're taking him out for the rest of the season. These are big decisions now. I happen to think that Danilo's well overdue a shot up front, but that's another discussion, I think. But it goes to, what exactly is he supposed to do, Kenny, with this team ahead of tomorrow night?
There's not an awful lot he can do, Stevie. He did say that's why you have a squad of players. That if people are off it, then you can start replacing. The issue we have, right, and I might be in danger of repeating what you've just said slightly here, but Jack Butland does need taken out the team. I don't think he'll do it tomorrow night. I just think it's too big a risk. I think you'll probably keep him in tomorrow night, but don't be surprised if he drops him thereafter. I've already said that I wouldn't start Yefty or Yilmaz at left back against this team. I would have Dujon still in there, which leaves us an issue in the middle of the, centre half. What do you do when you've got a situation, and Suter's injured, yeah, but it doesn't really alter the fact that Leon Balogun is probably the best centre-half we have at the club, and he's 36 years of age, and it's an absolute disgrace that we're sitting in this situation for the second season in a row, and it comes down to recruitment, that you're relying on a 36-year-old in the quarter-final of a Europa League tie, and it's a 36-year-old guy that we know can't play 2 games a week. That's negligence, Stevie. In the middle, Diamandi's suspended for tomorrow night. I can't really see who else you can bring in but Tom Lawrence if he's fit. I don't know if he is. And I'm not ever convinced with Tom Lawrence in Europe at that level because of the pace of the opponents that you're playing against. I think he just lacks a little bit of pace. Up front, I totally agree with you. It depends on the change of formation that he is going to use. But for me, definitely, I would have Danilo and Igaman through the middle. I would have Danilo playing just off Igaman. I think that's where we played our best football, Stevie, over the course of this season, was when the two of them were playing together. They linked up really well, and it mystifies me still that we aren't changing that and even having a look at it. And that's both under Barry so far since he's been in and Philip Clement toward the end of his tenure. I don't understand why we're not doing that. The centre-half issue is the kind of main one for me for tomorrow night because we're just going to be low on bodies, and I don't know what we do. I don't know whether you put play with 3 at the back or 2, 3 centre-halves or 2 centre-halves. I don't know what he's going to do. And we have a lack of centre-halves in the squad, and certainly capable ones, but I would be shoring that middle of the pitch up. And as I say, I would probably have Tav out wide right and Sterling out wide left for the physicality and the pace that they have. cope with them on the wings, because that's where they're most dangerous. I think this team's too strong for us anyway, Stevie. I really do. I think they're just a bit too. They're a bit of a higher level than we are, but that doesn't alter the fact we have to find a way of stopping them and try to win that game tomorrow. And how he goes about it, if I'm being blunt, I have no idea. I genuinely don't know how he's going to do that, because we have, to use an old saying I used to say, we've got more issues than the Beano at the minute. And I don't know how you kind of go rectifying that in the space of a couple of days, mate. So for me, the key thing, as I say, is don't play Yefty or Yilmaz there. You have to use the physical strength that Stellan has, because they are very, very powerful in that one.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think where I am is that certain players keep letting Barry down, and if Barry keeps picking them, then he's going to be as much a downfall, and they're going to cost him a job, just like they have cost others. I think that's where I am, and sadly for me at this moment in time, I spoke about this last week in the Rangers review, that Jack Butland, could he carry on, and could he, continue as Rangers number one? I said he had to cut out the mistakes. The very next day, he threw in one against Hibs, and the second one, by the way, straight at him and goes straight through him as well, from Martin Boyle, and he's just not shot stopping anymore, and these are the big things, and he's literally thrown him in. See, for me, he comes out of the team tomorrow, and I know Liam Kelly is not as good, but Liam Kelly is better with his ball at his feet, and the amount of kicking that Jack Butland's doing that's putting us in trouble is alarming, and Liam Kelly is basically a good shot stopper. He had to be at Motherwell. So I'm not saying he's better than Jack, but what I'm saying is, would you get the bare basics out of him? I think you probably would. At some point, the other Butland's going to have to come out. Cyril Dessers certainly has to come out of the team. And I know it's an easy one because it's Cyril and I prefer others. Igaman maybe has to come out of the team as well. Would I go Czerny and Danilo? Probably would go Czerny and Danilo. Tom Lawrence has to come in the team. I'm not a huge Tom Lawrence fan, but he's capable of shooting. He's capable of getting up and supporting as well. And in a three where Diamante's coming out, you probably have to put Tom Lawrence in there. At the back, really difficult. Proper Balogun, Tav, Sterling. I don't want either left back playing, so that's a big thing. So he's got key decisions everywhere, Barry Ferguson, to make. And at some point, he's got to stop picking the same guys that are letting him down. It's maybe a point I'll make to him this afternoon, that that we need to see a change in those really big ones. So, yeah, it's difficult. None of this is Barry's fault. I think that's really key to say. Everybody knows that, but I certainly don't blame Barry for anything that's going on or any position that we're in. I would like to see him be a wee bit more ruthless in his selection. I wouldn't have went the way he did against Hibs. I said it at the time. But I don't individually think I would have not played Butland or Dessers and things. But I think now they've seen their chances come and go. That's for sure. But Kenny, we'll leave it there. Huge Thursday night ahead. We will be back on Friday to discuss that. There'll be a live vlog tomorrow night from the game, which you'll be able to pick up at full time. Kind of going through the big moments. It's going to be a big one, that's for sure. The last chance saloon to continue this season. I dread to think where this football club would be if it wasn't for this ongoing takeover. Again, lots of noise. We know that it's at the lawyer stage. That's where we know that there's not going to be very much updates until you get a finalisation there, folks. At the moment, you just need to ignore the noise a wee bit and just wait and see where that goes. Kenny, it's been a pleasure as always. I would love it if we could come on and talk about good performances and argue about which key striker is going to start, because they're both in form. But it certainly isn't like that at the moment. You'll be looking forward to Bilbao anyway tomorrow night. We always do. Glutton for punishment in many ways.
Oh yeah, I'm buzzing for it. I can't wait. Actually, it's what you're a football fan for, isn't it? Games like this against quality opposition like that, and you pit yourself against them and you see how you do. And I've no doubt that, having just questioned their lack of professionalism and pride in the work, that they'll be right up for it tomorrow night, our squad. So, listen, it's Rangers Thursday, you never know. But one quick point, what you said there about where would we be if it wasn't for this takeover, mate, there would be Edmiston Road would be a wash with Rangers supporters and not happy, put it that way, after games, because it's been appalling of late and it's got to change, and here's hoping it does soon.
Yeah, it certainly does. This football club needs resuscitated, and it certainly needs a shot in the arm from top to bottom. We spoke a wee bit about recruitment, player form, etc., but all of that certainly needs a rethink, that's for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much for joining us here on Four Lads, your midweek Rangers show. Huge thanks, Kenny, for joining us. Huge thanks for you for watching. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you're watching on Spotify, listening on Spotify, Apple, etc., please subscribe there. It really helps us. It helps us to what we're trying to do. We go to the football club ideas. It's if we can say to them, we have thousands of subscribers, it really helps us, and it's free to subscribe. All you do is press the button. It really helps us. Thanks to our sponsors, Rhino Express, Jim, Mando, the team there, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial, Ian, Carlo at CSD Air Conditioning, and our partners Black Rooster and Art of Gold. All these make that what it is today. Everybody that's liked and bought a membership for the YouTube channel, you're just helping us. That's all you're doing. You're helping the show. And there's 30 odd of you now, and I really, really appreciate that. And we really appreciate that. When Andrew's here, he brings all the names up. He's very clever at that. When Stevie's on, Stevie does not. So that's just the way it is, I'm afraid. In fact, hold on a wee second. There you go. See, I can do this. Thank you to all our founding members. Kenny, just while they all go through, and we'll let them get a wee run round. It's worth saying thanks again to everybody who does support the show and things.
No, listen, we've just been going for just over a year, haven't we, and on the podcast, and it's grown at extreme speed. It's been absolutely amazing, and thanks to everybody behind the scenes. The team that we have is the best team we've had since we started, and a great bunch of people on Four Lads, and we're all striving to just get bigger and better, aren't we? So we're loving it.
Yeah, we certainly are. Look, thanks to everybody that's subscribed. You can get your name added to that list of subscribers. All you do is check out our memberships in the description, for as little as 99p, and that helps us completely. So thank you to everybody that has joined and done that. Now that I know how to do that, Kenny, I'll get that up more often. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. Good luck to the team and the manager and the management staff tomorrow night against Bilbao. Let's hope it's something to hold on to. That's for sure. It's going to be a difficult few weeks. Bilbao, Aberdeen away, Bilbao away, and then we come back to the split as well. So, let's hope that for Barry's sake, as much can happen as possible. And a message to those players: Saturday wasn't good enough again. Pick up your standards. This is Rangers Football Club. It's not a part-time club where you can just pick and choose. Have a think. We'll see you again soon.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.